It is Thursday. We are in the home stretch to the weekend. Does this mean we can gallop over the finish line and start getting ready to have some fun? Or are we going to peter out just short of our goal and have to slog our way through a Friday of boredom? I don't know. I can't tell you. All I can tell you for sure is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. I am back once again. I am Jeff McAleer, and I am your host here at the Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. It's Thursday, January 11th, and as I mentioned in the open, we're getting really close to the weekend, and I am looking forward to it because I've got a lot of gaming ahead of me, and I'll talk a little bit about that in our break between the news and my review today. Anyway, there were a few things I just wanted to mention real quickly. If you were just watching the stream and all of a sudden it's like, hey, okay, so Jeff's carrying on for a few minutes and I don't hear anything. Yeah, well, I had just sat down about 2 minutes, seriously, about 2 minutes before the stream went live. And I did not check my mic, so I apologize for that. Yeah, things, every once in a while, things don't go as planned. Just like yesterday, I had done some changes. If you've watched previous episodes of the Daily Dope, you haven't watched in the past few days, you'll notice that there's a lot more screen real estate, and it certainly isn't because my face for radio needs to be right out there in front of you. It was just I wanted to have a little more room for reviews and things like that. Make this less Twitch stream looking. But I had a power outage right before the show went on yesterday, and I was doing some tweaks to these kind of overlays and that. And I should say up here in this corner here is kind of just, you know, the Gaming Gang logo and email address if you have questions, comments, suggestions, mailbag at thegaminggang.com. as well as the date. And I resized that window a little bit and then thought it was changed, and then the power went out and didn't save it, and didn't realize it. And I was just excited the power came back up about 5 minutes before the stream went live yesterday. But so yeah, sorry about that. Also, on Tuesday's show, I was talking about the Everdell Kickstarter from Starling Games and Game Salute. And I had talked about how I couldn't find a website for Starling Games, and that's usually a little bit of a red flag to me as far as Kickstarters go. They had a Twitter presence, they had a Facebook presence, but I didn't find like starlinggames.com anywhere. I was searching on Google. And it was mainly because if you go to thegaminggang.com, when you see a news piece, things like that, there's always a link. And of course, when I talk about the news and you're seeing some images of the games I'm talking about, or whatever I'm talking about, I have a link. Couldn't find one. So I thought, well, geez, they don't have a website. Well, it turns out they do. It's actually a subdomain at gamesalute.com. So my apologies, because, you know, to me that was a red flag for that Kickstarter that I didn't find an actual company website, but it does exist just as kind of a subdomain. So anyway, speaking of Everdell, it looks really, really unique, and it's got some fabulous artwork. And I do have to say that on Tuesday it did launch. I wasn't even sure when that Kickstarter had launched, because Kickstarter's changed over the past couple of years. You used to be able to see when did the project launch, when it's completed. It would say when it ended. You don't see that anymore. Like for an example, I'm going to talk about a couple of Kickstarters today. If you go and visit the Kickstarter page, it's not going to tell you when it started. It's just going to tell you when it runs to. Anyway, so it turned out that it funded on the first day, and it looks really, really interesting. A very, very interesting game. So that was the item I wanted to apologize. And no one from Game Salute or Starling Games reached out and said, "Hey, Jeff, you're a dope. We do have a website." No, I just found out myself. I want to say it was Tuesday night, and thought, "Oh, rats!" And I forgot to mention it yesterday's show. But if I mess up something, I'm going to be honest. I don't kind of cover my butt. I don't pass the buck. I'm old school. I keep mentioning I'm a kind of old school guy. And if I mess something up and misspeak, I am going to do my best to point that out. Speaking of, well, maybe not misspeaking, but not speaking at all, I did a review of 1960, The Making of the President, from GMT Games yesterday, and it was a pretty long, detailed review, which I wasn't necessarily planning on doing. And I had mentioned that, well, I'm not going to get into every little detail or every mechanic of the game, but dummy me didn't cover a couple of aspects of a turn, a couple of phases of the turn. I left those out. They're not huge critical things. I kind of mentioned them a little bit, but I didn't go into detail. And afterwards, I always check to make sure the stream's okay. And I thought, goofball. But I don't script things out, and very rarely do I actually do kind of bullet points. And it's kind of strange the way I look at it. It's sort of like when I'm doing a review or I'm talking about how to play a game, I'm just kind of explaining things the way I do to other players when I'm teaching them how to play something. And there are times where something will slip my mind. So anyway, still I had a lot of fun showing off 1960. It's an excellent game. And the GMT edition that came out recently is fantastic. Anyway, before I get to the news, I also wanted to mention a few other items, what's coming up on the show. So, you can kind of schedule if you want to pop in, watch live. I know it's the afternoon. People are at work, at school. Don't get a lot of people watching live. But if you want to catch it later on. So, on tomorrow's show, I will be reviewing Shutterbug. Yay, Shutterbug from Calliope Games, and that is for our family-friendly, well, I guess I'll say family fun, because I have the family fun zone at the Gaming Gang, so it's Family Fun Fridays. So I've got that. Also wanted to mention that congratulations once again to John Vogel, who won our giveaway for Battles of the Warrior Queen, for GMT's Caesar Conquest of Gaul, and I got his address. I am going to be sending that out in the mail on Saturday. I'm going to roll out, head to the post office on Saturday and get that out to him. Got some other stuff cooking for some giveaways. I have not had a chance to pull down my copy of Z-Man Games 1960, Making of the President, to see if it's unpunched, because I talked about it yesterday when I was doing the review. I think I'll do a giveaway for it. I'm going to make it a little trickier than the Battles of the Warrior Queen. You're probably going to have to be a patron over on Patreon to be able to score that. Because I think on the secondary market unpunched, that game's going for $60 to $100. So I don't want to just be like, oh, okay, follow me on Twitter or something like that. But I've got other things cooking too as far as giveaways. So stay tuned on that. So on Monday, where do I have floating around? There we go. On Monday, I will be reviewing Sakura Arms from my pals over at AEG. This is a two-player kind of battling game, and it's a Japanese design. It is very unique, let me tell you that much. And then on Tuesday, I was going to try to do this past Tuesday, and then I had something come up family related that made me have to zip out of the house fairly quickly, so it was a pretty short show. But I am going to review Sword and Sorcery from Ares Games and Goblin Project. And if you ever caught my unboxing video for this, pretty impressive. For some strange reason, I think it kind of flew under some people's radars. I don't know why. There was just a lot of really cool stuff, kind of similar stuff too, that hit about the same time. So you had like GreenBrier Games Folklore, which is awesome. Hopefully you jumped on that Kickstarter again when you had your chance. But I will be doing a review of this, and then on Wednesday. Now, if you follow the Gaming Gang on Twitter, you know, sometimes I'll float stuff out there. So for an example, I want to do a how to play, and it just turned into a review for 1960 yesterday because I hadn't actually done a review for 1960, which I thought was fantastic. Gave it a 9.2 out of 10. It's that good. But I gave folks on Twitter an option to vote on which of two games that they would have me do a how to play. And first was 1960, and the other title was Night of Man from Flying Pig Games and my pal, Mark H. Walker. And just like the Kennedy-Nixon election, the voting was very, very close. But 1960 did squeeze out the win. So what I'm going to do is, I felt a little bad because Mark had actually commented on Twitter, hey, come on, do Night of Man, give some of the smaller publishers some love. Like GMT's a monster publisher. But I was like, yeah, you know, I can see that. So I will do a how to play. There's already a review of Night of Man on thegaminggang.com. I really dug it, so you can check that out. That'll be Wednesday. Thursday will be another RPG thing. I don't know exactly what I'll be tackling yet. Got a few things in the pipeline. There's always stuff in the pipeline. That's why I was mentioning I'm looking forward to this weekend, because I got a lot of gaming to do. Okay, so I have rambled on now for about 10 minutes, and folks are sitting there saying, hey, you know what? I stopped in here. I want to see some news. I want to get that review of that Snow White Pathfinder / 3.5 D&D supplement. Come on, move it along, Jeff. So let's move on to the news. And I have to point out, well, let me fix something here. Gotta keep in mind, I don't script stuff. The only time I do anything is, anything scripted is when I do the news. And my teleprompter was a little bit off because I had started doing the show and there was no sound. So I had to fix that for a second. Anyway, it is time for you to extract your revenge. Well, okay, not in real life, of course, but in a board game. That's right, because the eagerly anticipated Vengeance will soon be available from my friends over at GreenBrier Games. And I've got the dope. Vengeance is a fast-paced, semi-co-op game for 1 to 4 players. Take your rage-filled broken hero, build them up, and gather intel on the baddies before taking the fight to their own turf. Take your bloody revenge through action-packed fight sequences made up of dice-based puzzles. In the game, you play the quintessential good guy who's been wronged. I hate when that happens. Thankfully, most people don't think I'm a good guy, so I don't get wronged too often. You start the game right after that climactic moment that would have broken lesser humans, like me, but has only turned your character's pain into a slow-burning internal rage. Vengeance alternates between montage turns and fight turns. In montage turns, players heal and upgrade their heroes through new abilities and items. They also go out scouting gang dens to find the bosses who wronged them and take revenge on them in the fight turn. The The fight turn is the heart of the game. Players pick one of these scouted gang dens and burst in to exact bloody revenge. They sure do like saying bloody revenge over at GreenBrier. Fights are dice-based puzzles. In each round of the fight, players roll a set of dice and decide the order in which they play the rolled results. Upgrade skills and items, allow players to swap die results for others. That just didn't seem written right. Or string together a number of results to perform enemy-slapping combos. Upgrades thus work toward mitigating the luck of the die roll, giving players more control over their fight actions. Players score points by killing bosses who wrong them, matching the figure on their own vengeance card with one of the face-down boss cards, or by clearing all minions of a gang which matches the color of a vengeance card they have in play. Players have 3 turns to do this and get out of the den in one piece. At the end of the game, players also score bonus victory points through 3 mission cards in play. As previously mentioned, Vengeance is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and will carry an MSRP of $95 when it arrives on January 24th. I will mention that if you take a peek, and I'm not going to go full screen for you to see, but as I reach over my shoulder here, got Vengeance right there, folks. I did a review on the December 14th show, and during December I was kind of doing a kind of soft rollout of the Daily Dope, and not to say that this is all like technically spectacular now, but I don't tend to have some of the weird issues pop up. Oh, except for like starting a stream for 10 minutes and having no sound. But I did review Vengeance, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very, very cool. I had a little critique about it, so you can check that out. But I did dig it, and I gave it like an 8 out of 10. So definitely, if you're interested in checking out Vengeance, give a watch to that video. And one thing that I will point out, because $95, here was my issue. I'll tell you. I mean, you should still check the video out, because in these slides passing through, there's a couple of shots from my video, so you get to see a lot of the stuff. But it has miniatures in it. It's got like a slew of miniatures in it. I just didn't see the need for the miniatures in the game. Check out the video. But I still really like the game, don't get me wrong. I just thought, standees or counters, tokens, things like that would have served their purpose and had a lower MSRP. That being said, if you're a gamer out there who's into miniature games and you do any sort of modern or kind of gritty, or even if I go old school here, what was it? Necromunda? Wasn't that the old Games Workshop where it was like the gangs, the different kind of futuristic gangs? You might want to take a peek, because there are loads and loads of miniatures. I think there's like 40, somewhere around that, about 40 minis. So even if you weren't all that keen on getting the game, which you should be, it's a cool game. I'll sock you if you don't think. Nah, I'm kidding. It is a cool game, but 40 miniatures for $95 is a pretty good deal too. Anyway, just kind of tossing that out there, because I'm one of these people who, I'm a kit basher, especially from back in the day when I used to. I love painting minis. I just don't have time to paint miniatures anymore. I wish I did. But I also did a lot of garage kits. Some old schoolers out there might remember these. It's not even that far back, but they would be like 1/6 scale. And I had airbrush and all this. It had a blast. It used to be super relaxing. And I would kit bash stuff all the time. So I'm famous for kind of stealing one thing from another game to use in in yet another game. So yeah, I'm always kind of on the lookout for that kind of stuff. Anywho, moving on to my next news piece. There's only like 4 news pieces today, so yeah. And if you watch the show, you already know I'm kind of chatty, for good or bad. But my next news piece is about a Kickstarter that I had chatted a bit about a few weeks ago, a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks ago. And it's coming from the fine folks at Calliope Games. And yes, that's right. Today was the launch of... All right, hang on. Why is my slide not changing here? Sure, I had to say, oh yeah, we don't have too many technical issues, but, oh, there we go. I didn't spend half the morning working on these slides for it not to work. For crying out loud. Anyway, there are two Kickstarters really that are coming out that I've talked about in the past, but the first is from my pals at Calliope Games, and it is the Mansky Caper. So yes, it is time to loot and scoot. So listen up, mooks, because he is the dope. Calliope Games announced today the launch of the Mansky Caper on Kickstarter. This Prohibition-era heist game, designed by Ken Franklin, offers a thrilling press-your-luck adventure that is easy to teach and plays in under an hour. The Mansky Caper is for 2 to 6 players, ages 8+, and plays in 40 to 60 minutes. Big Al Mansky, the most ruthless and illustrious mob boss ever, is away on vacation. He's probably off with his twist someplace, and players take on the roles of colorful associates, robbing lavish rooms in Big Al's mansion and dodging explosive booby traps. Each turn, navigate through Big Al Mansky's mansion, cracking safes to reveal valuables, explosives, and thrilling plot twists. And I'm not talking about like Al Mansky's twist he's on vacation with. I'm talking about plot twists. Share your loot with others in the same room. Call in favors to perform skillful actions, and above all, decide when to stash your share at the getaway car before you hear boom. And when I say boom, I mean boom. The Mansky Caper features captivating artwork by Matt Franklin in a premium presentation. It also includes 5 pre-assembled 3D cardboard safes from which to draw loot tokens, shiny plastic gems, drawstring cloth stash bags, a fully illustrated comic book which doubles as the rule book. What is that, stashed in a box? And hundreds of colorful tokens and markers. I think that part of the press release could have been put together a little better. Even with components of the highest quality, the Mansky Caper remains incredibly affordable, with the Kickstarter pledge costing only $32, and that's going to include shipping. Yes, that's right, includes shipping. The Kickstarter campaign for the Mansky Caper runs from today until February 9th, 2018. After the successful conclusion of the Kickstarter funding campaign, the game will ship to Kickstarter backers in May, followed by a summer 2018 worldwide release. And I must say that I do have a video for the Mansky Caper, so let's take a peek.
For too long, our family has been disrespected while Big Al Mansky lives the good life. That's all gonna change tonight. This caper is gonna be the score of a lifetime.
The Mansky Caper is an explosive press-your-luck heist game for 2 to 6 players ages 8 and up. Your family of associates must work together to ransack the mansion of Prohibition-era mob boss Big Al Mansky. Although the gems and coins you find are shared, only the player with the most loot at the end of the caper will be the new head of the family.
So while cooperation leads to riches, this is not a cooperative game.
Most turns, players will choose a room and open the safe, drawing a token to see what they have found. But Big Al doesn't trust cops or guards, so his security system relies on high explosives that can wipe out the loot and may even destroy the mansion.
The person who knows best when to press their luck and when to stash their share at the getaway car will be the winner.
Each character has a special ability, but they cannot use their ability for themselves.
We're a talented bunch. We need to make sure we're using the right skills for the job.
Instead, players trade favor markers back and forth to use the abilities of others.
Offering help and calling in favors is the real key to a successful caper.
The Mansky Caper is perfect for all ages and levels of experience. It's easy to learn and takes less than an hour to play. The box is chock full of amazing art and eye-popping components, from 3D safes to shiny gems, and even a classic comic book that explains the rules.
Just look at all this stuff. Dare I say it sounds like a steal?
Calliope Games is proud to present the Mansky Caper, a game with infinite replayability, guaranteed surprises, and a diabolical blend of tension and laughter.
So what do you say? The gang's all here. It's time to move. Grab your gear and join us in the Mansky Caper.
Alrighty then. Excuse me. It does look pretty neat. I like the little 3D safes. I think that's kind of cool. One thing I have to point out is that thankfully Calliope Games actually commissioned some original music for their video, so I was able to share it. Unfortunately, the other Kickstarter news that I've got, I can't. And this was a problem I ran into the other day when I had 3 Kickstarter videos that were actually pretty cool. And it turned out 2 of them got my video flagged for copyright. In fact, one of them, I'm not naming any company names, actually ended up, it would have been banned worldwide. So I had to sit there and do an edit on YouTube to mute those out. So, having gotten burned like that, I'm making sure to upload these Kickstarter videos privately to YouTube, see if they flag them for any kind of copyright violation. And if they do, I'm not sharing them, because I'm not going through that hassle just because I'm sharing some other company's news. Anywho, as far as Calliope Games, $32 is a very fair pledge level to get the core game. And I'm going to try to talk to Chris. I want to say his last name is Letter. It may be Leader. I think it's Letter, because he actually lives locally. So I'm going to see if I can sit down and do an interview. We'll talk a little Calliope Games, talk a little the Mansky Caper in the next maybe week or 2. I think that would be kind of cool to include on the show. Anyway, as I mentioned in the press release, the Mansky Caper is for 2 to 6 players, ages 8 and up, plays in about an hour, and you can reserve a copy, as I mentioned, for a 32 simoleon pledge level. That's right. All right, so I have 2 Kickstarter items today. Just a lot of Kickstarter news lately, and folks who know me know I kind of try to shy away from sharing too much Kickstarter stuff. But this one is another that I had mentioned not too long ago, and it's from IDW Games, and it's Mask of the Red Death, based on the classic Edgar Allan Poe tale. Mask of the Red Death is a deduction and movement programming game for 4 to 7 players set in the grim world of the short story by Edgar Allan Poe. Players are nobles attending an extravagant masked ball while a plague ravages the country. Players are trying to do what nobles do: feast, dance, celebrate, pretty much give out drippings for the poor. Yeah, I just threw that in myself. And become as popular as they can. But rumors swirl as the night goes on, and everyone feels oddly nervous each time the clock chimes. The nobles might be wise to spend some time listening to these rumors. It has become increasingly clear as midnight approaches that something sinister awaits. Ooh. At midnight, a horrible figure in the guise of the Red Death appears at the masquerade. It stalks amongst the rooms of the abbey, killing the nobles it comes across. The most popular noble wins, but that only matters if you survive the night. The game takes place in the peculiar abbey of Prince Prospero. The abbey is divided into 7 rooms, each decorated and lit in a particular color. Players start with a set of 9 identical action cards and 1 unique personality card. These action cards include things like discuss, dance, admire, mock, flirt. Woohoo! Each turn, players will 1. Choose a card from their hand to play simultaneously. 2. Perform the action one at a time to gain popularity or rumors. 3. Move to an adjacent room after everyone's actions are complete. Optional. As each turn goes by, the clock gets closer to reaching midnight. As players gather rumors, they begin planning their movements after midnight to avoid the Red Death. They can make changes to their plan at any time until midnight. The Red Death will visit 2 rooms at each time: 12, 12:10, 12:20, 12:30, 12:40, and 12:50. Players must plan out movements behind their player screens to avoid being in the rooms that the Red Death visits. At midnight, the game drastically changes. Players can no longer change their planned movements, and they must now hope they gathered enough information to avoid the Red Death. Players enact their planned 12 o'clock movement, either moving their figure clockwise, counterclockwise, or staying in place. Then the 2 12 o'clock Red Death cards, I should say, are revealed one at a time for suspense. The Red Death visits the rooms shown on the cards, killing all nobles in those rooms, removing their figures from the abbey and the popularity track. Surviving nobles enact their planned 12:10 movement, and then so on and so forth, and this is going to repeat each time slot until 12:50 is resolved. The most popular surviving noble wins, if I guess any of them do. May this victory give you strength as you contemplate the inevitability of death among the corpses of your fallen countrymen. Mask of the Red Death is actually already past its funding goal, and it just launched today, and you can reserve a copy at the $60 pledge level. A couple of things I'm going to mention as far as, I already mentioned that I tried uploading this video to check to see if I would violate copyright, and I would by including it in the show, so I'm not showing off the video. But if you kind of take a look at some of these slides going past, you're going to see that, I mean, at first glance, I thought, whoa, wait a second, it's $60 for this game? This doesn't look like a $60 game. So there's a few things I'm going to point out about this edition of Mask of the Red Death. I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to make it more of a value or anything like that, but take it for what it's worth, because you're not really seeing it in what's being shown here. In fact, you really weren't seeing that much in the Kickstarter video either. But first off, like, this matters. It's IDW Games, so of course that's part of IDW Publishing, and they're well known for their comics. So that whole variant thing is more important in comics than it certainly would, ever be in board games, at least to my knowledge. I don't sit there going, ooh, wow, I can get this different box cover. But this does, if you notice, it's got kind of like a muted black with red clock, and that's the variant. So it's a variant box, so it's a different box. The other thing is, to my knowledge, it's not standees in the game. They're actually miniatures in the game. And they are based on, I believe it's Gris Grimley is the artist's name. All the artwork is provided by him, and the figures themselves are based on his artwork for the game. And there will be 10 miniatures in the game. In fact, there's one slide that kind of is showing off the Archbishop. So just wanted to float that out there, because the first thing I noticed, I thought, $60 for this game? With standees and stuff? It's a social deduction game, really. Like, so, you know, just floating it out there. It does appear that there will be just a regular retail edition of Mask of the Red Death if this funds, but there's no pledge level for it. So just so you know, because I have seen different artwork for the box, and they are talking about that this is going to be kind of an exclusive version of the game. I think the components, like the player cards, the kind of like tracking cards, like you would use, not actual hands of cards, but the boards, player boards, there we go, are much thicker in this, and so on and so forth. So anyway, all right. So I've talked about that a little too much. Hey, and IDW, do me a favor. Don't be using music that's going to get me flagged for copyright, because I would have loved to have shared your Kickstarter video as opposed to me having to explain a bunch of stuff. Anyhow, everybody knows I am always on the lookout to save you some money or get some cool freebies. And because it's Thursday and I like to talk about RPGs on Thursday, I do want to point out there is a sweet bundle of holding that you might want to take a peek at. Yes, that's right, because Bundle of Holding has their latest to bundle, I guess we would say, to arrive. And it is for Hellfrost, which is from Triple Ace Games, I believe. I think that's company, Triple Ace. Anyway, I'm sure it's in the news piece. What, do you think I read all of these news pieces every day? Come on. I have things to do in life. Yes, it's Triple Ace Games. I'm messing with you. Anyway, here is the dope from Bundle of Holding. Adventura! Our Fellowship of Triple Aces has revived and revamped the September 2015 Hellfrost Essentials Bundle, one of two offers now in progress featuring Hellfrost, the epic fantasy tabletop role-playing campaign set in a frozen land where winter threatens the world. Published by Triple Ace Games, I told you, Hellfrost is one of the most admired and popular settings created for Pinnacle Entertainment's best-selling Savage Worlds RPG rules. If you're new to the setting, start here. With 2 new supplements added for this revival, the Essentials Collection gives you everything you need, now more than ever, for a complete campaign in the icebound landscapes of Rassilon. And if you purchase this offer during its original September 2015 run, you're going to get the new editions automatically. For just $12.95, you get all 5 titles in this offer's player collection, which carries a retail value of $54, as DRM-free PDF books. You get the Hellfrost Player's Guide, the ideal introduction to the world of Rassilon and its many menaces. Includes the free Savage Worlds test drive rules. Matters of Faith. 24 major cults, 70 minor cults, and over 90 major festivals, I should say, plus a tour of Godsheim, Realm of the Gods, which is newly added for this revival. Arcane Lore. Druidic Pacts, the Megacracies, Megacracies? Okay. The Megacracies famed schools of Elementalists, Lost Dwarven Runes, Song Mages, and more. The Heroes and Villains Compendium. Dozens of novice-level characters fully described for non-player encounters or as ready-made player heroes, as well as the Organization Guide, the military, political, and mercantile powers that exert continent-wide influence. But wait, as they say on television, there's more. If you pay more than this offer's threshold price of $25.54, you'll level up and also get the entire Game Master Collection with 5 more supplements worth an additional $75, including the Hellfrost Bestiary and Creature Guide, the Encounters Book 1, new for this revival, Legendary Endeavors, and what else we got? I think that's it that they were showing. Okay, so there's 2 more titles. There's also the Hellfrost Atlas bundle of holding, which is going on as well. And that contains the Atlas of the Frozen North and also some other supplements too. So if you are interested in Hellfrost, getting into Hellfrost and checking it out, this would be a good time to score some savings. And $13 gets you 5 essential supplements. So that's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. All right, so that is pretty much the news for today, but I do want to talk about a few other things to save you some dough. If you go to DriveThruRPG once in a while, if that's one of your locations that you score your PDFs for your role-playing games, they are in the midst of the New Year, New Game sale. And there are about 5,000 items which are all at least 20% off. And there are some pretty cool bundles too. And one thing I will mention, there is a bundle for the Modifius Entertainment Conan Adventures in an Age Undreamed Of, which I think is spectacular. So if you're looking to possibly get into that system, you can save some dough on that. Like I said, there are just tons and tons of items that are currently on sale in the New Year, New Game sale at DriveThruRPG. And as I mentioned with DriveThruRPG, if you go to thegaminggang.com first, click on one of our banners, and then make your purchase, we do get a small portion of that purchase. And that helps us stick around, as well as it also frees me up to pick up some RPG products to review for you guys. So just want to point that out. But yeah, that New Year, New Game sale is pretty nice. Also, you only have 2 days left to save in the Victory Point Games sale that's going on at victorypointgames.com. Everything on their website is currently 20% off. There are 3 titles. Forget off the top of my head. Top of my hand? Why would I say top of my hand? Because I'm holding my hand up like this? Off the top of my head, I don't recall what those 3 are. But as I was talking about the New Year, New Game sale, it just popped in my head that I should mention you only have 2 days left to save over at VPG. And if you're at a loss for what some of their really cool games might be that you could pick up, check out our reviews over at thegaminggang.com. There are loads of Victory Point Games reviews. So kind of point you in the right direction. And there were a couple that I was like, So it's not as if, every review for VPG Games is like super like, yeah. So at least, let me point you in the correct direction as far as what's going on with the sale. Anyway, so before I start reviewing Snow White from Adventure Week, hold on a sec. Oh my God, dead air. What am I, insane? All I was going to mention was that, as I pointed out earlier in the show, got a lot of gaming to do this weekend. And earlier in the week, I was talking about how I'm introducing my nephew and his friends to the old classic Fletcher Pratt's Naval War Game. And yes, I know it's not War Game Wednesday. But if you know anything about Fletcher Pratt's, you don't really have to be a big war gamer to get a huge kick out of it. And I was going to show off. I keep saying show off. Show off means something's impressive. I'm going to show it off. I was going to share some of the ship kind of tokens, counters that I'm working on yesterday's show. And then I thought, no, this 1960 how to play and review is going to be pretty long. I don't think I'm going to do that. So don't worry, I didn't forget about sharing it with you. I will talk about that next week. So we're going to be playing some of that, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I think my best friend Elliot Miller, who is pretty intimately familiar with Fletcher Pratt's Naval War Game because we played in high school and in the years since. So I'm hoping he gets a chance to pop by and play with us. So it's going to be fun. Always got a kick out of it. I get to referee. I don't get to actually play. I have to be the referee. Anyway, moving right along. So I've got a review of Snow White from Adventure a Week Games. It is written by Stephen Yeardley, Jonathan G. Nelson, and Will Myers. And this came out, I want to say it originally came out in 2014. And then they did a Kickstarter to kind of put together a really deluxe edition. So that came out, and then it was nominated for a bunch of awards, Ennies and so on. In fact, not just one Ennie, I think it was 4 Ennie awards in 2016. And I know some folks out there are going to be thinking, okay, Jeff, well, come on, this has been out for a while. Why are you reviewing this? Well, first of all, this is my first exposure to Adventure a Week Games. So I had heard of them. I wasn't intimately familiar with any of their products, anything along those lines. And Jonathan over at AAW was kind enough to send me some PDFs to check out. And man, I got to tell you, they're super impressive. And okay, maybe I have some bias a little bit. Sometimes the third-party products that are out there for different games can be really varied in quality. I've seen some stuff that's just fantastic, and I've seen other stuff, it was sort of like, you charged $5 for this PDF? So I wanted to take a little bit of time, and because it's a PDF I'm looking at, it's going to be a little odd because I don't have a physical book to kind of page through some pages and kind of talk about this. So I do have a few different images that I'm going to share as I talk, and I'm going to kind of switch back and forth between showing images, going back to me, showing images, going back to me, because it's not as if I put like 100 images on these slides that are going to kind of fade in and out. So my approach when I'm looking at something, and I have to point out that I had to keep this spoiler free because this is an adventure. This is just a really massive product, really. It's 246 pages. And it is an adventure. I do want to mention that it's not simply an adventure, though. So there is a lot of extra world background, spells. I mean, this is just loaded with stuff. So I don't want to give the impression that this is just an adventure, but because it is an adventure, I have to keep it spoiler free. In fact, there's actually, for Snow White, there is a player's guide. Now, I'm not going to tell you the title of the player's guide, but there is a player's guide that is available, and it's got a completely different title to throw players off so they don't realize that it's actually a player's guide for Snow White. I thought that was, not only was that kind of funny, I thought that was actually pretty clever of Adventure Week Games to do that. Because, yeah, I've been lucky in my career of gaming. I never had players that were, if I were running something that was based on some published product, which once again, I mentioned before, I'm a kit basher. I tear stuff apart all the time and take things I like from one system and incorporate it into another system. So when I'm running a role-playing game, the system doesn't really look exactly like it is in the book, which is actually one of my tips that I give to players all the time and new GMs all the time is, you know, it's not as if you have to look at a rule book as if it's, you know, the end all be all. You can change things around. Mike Merles isn't going to show up at your door with the RPG police because you decided to toss out some rule from D&D and replace it with something else. Eric Mona's not coming by with a big bat in his hand saying, hey, how come you guys aren't running Pathfinder the way it is in the book? It's your game. Make it what you want. And anyway, so like I was saying, that this is an adventure. I can't get too spoiler-ish in this. But there are a lot of things to really dig about Snow White. And just to kind of set up the premise of the adventure itself. So it's for characters, off the top of my head, I think it's characters levels 3 to 6. And it's really not set up to be where you want to have like really super powered characters in it. And, you know, it all varies. I mean, some GMs I've played with, they just, you know, just threw out anything, you know, threw out the best gear and that. And you know, by the time you were second level, you had a flying carpet and a Vorpal sword, everything else. Where others are a bit more stingy. So one thing I did dig about this, the setup is that there is a wedding going on in this town. And the players are invited to guard it. They're not invited to the wedding. They've been invited to guard, to perform guard duties at this wedding because this young woman from the town is being married to nobility. So it's kind of a, you know, it's going to be a big deal. It's a big deal for the town. And because the players, you know, they're level 3 to 6, 3 to 5-ish, somewhere around there, because they have some renown, they are being paid to perform guard duties. And of course, wedding's not going to go off without a hitch, right? What kind of adventure would that be? Wow, that was exciting. I'm not going to say, you know, talk about what happens, but so the players, one thing, first off, I dug about it is that the hook to get the players into the adventure is cool. It's a little unique. It's not the usual, hey, you're sitting around in the tavern kind of thing, which is so hackneyed. It's been done since the beginning of time as far as role-playing games. So you're sitting in this tavern, and all of a sudden this guy comes in and he's bleeding. It's like, okay, going with this again, right? Okay, all right. So I like how it kind of gets the players involved in this, and it's not looking for these players to be just world killers. You know, they have renown. They're not famous. They're not like, we gotta hire these guys. No, because first of all, the town wouldn't be able to afford it. So there is just loads and loads of stuff that are in the game itself. And as I mentioned, it's not just an adventure. So you've got loads of new spells because this is based on fairy tales, and it really delves into a lot of the Grimm fairy tales in very interesting and unique ways. But there's also there's some new rules for like a high-speed chase through the woods on horseback that are really, really interesting. I'll be the first to admit, I don't run Pathfinder, and the PDF, it's available also for D&D 3.5. I have heard that it's very likely that this will eventually be converted over to 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's just not something that's like right on the horizon. But it is something that I guess Adventure Week Games is looking to do. But keep in mind, there isn't that huge a difference between 5th edition D&D and 3.5, especially if you're an experienced game master, dungeon master. Dungeon master. Should be able to do it fairly easily. But I should point out that at some point in the future, you should be able to see Snow White for 5th edition. Anyways, as I was saying, that there's all these different, very unique additions to Pathfinder. There's rules for romance, and that can be really, really tricky as far as a role-playing game. And it a lot of times it has to do with how comfortable people at the table are with that, especially game masters, especially younger game masters who, you know, don't have that kind of experience, you know, that mileage where they can understand, you know, some of the concepts, things like that. So there are actually rules for romance and love in this supplement, which I thought was very, very interesting and very well done. But it's not all just, so there's new optional rules that you can use and things like that. No, there's a lot of stuff cooking in this game too. And a bunch of different little adventures. There's even mini games in it as well that I thought, well, that's a little different. Don't see that in a role-playing game usually, or at least role-playing games that I have encountered. And the production quality of this is just top-notch. Excuse me as I switch up and start showing some other images rather than my mug. And I don't mean this mug, I mean this mug. It's really nicely laid out. And I was very, very impressed because, as I mentioned before, I'm not familiar with Adventure Week Games. You know, I see stuff from Paizo, I see stuff from Wizards of the Coast, Chaosium, Pinnacle Entertainment. Who else? Who am I leaving out here? Pelgrane Press, I see stuff from. And, you know, a lot of times, especially like Chaosium for years had that just specific looking Call of Cthulhu, kind of black and white. You had that font that you see all the time, and it's, you know, I was so used to seeing so many supplements that come out in that style that I forgot what super impressive looking supplements and adventures look like. And this one from Adventure a Week is, I mean, it's amazingly impressive. I can't get over it. You know, it's not Paizo, it's not Wizards of the Coast. This is a third-party company. The artwork is phenomenal. It really is. The artwork is really good, and I'll pop back up if you're taking a peek here. And it's not that there's only, you know, 4 or 5 images throughout the 240 plus pages. It's jam-packed. But then again, it's not one of these products where all they did was throw in images and it's all fluff, that there's really hardly any gaming material in it. This is really something that a solid DM, game master, whatever you want to say, can really stretch out into a campaign, really. Even though the adventure itself wouldn't play out in a long period, there's loads and loads of stuff in this supplement that will allow you to draw upon for future games, especially if you dig fairy tales. See, that's the other thing that I really enjoyed about this too, is because we see so much now. Don't get me wrong, this isn't all, you know, fairy dust and everything's wonderful and things like that. No, this is a pretty dark setting, but it's not that whole grim dark. There is some levity, there's humor in this as well. And another thing I like too is, as you wrap up the adventure, because sometimes and you'll see this more in like fantasy games. You'll see fantasy games where it's basically, okay, so this is the end, this is the conclusion, this is what happens, and it doesn't really matter how the players got there. It's, you know, it doesn't matter how the journey went. This is how the game is eventually going to, that adventure or campaign, whatever, is eventually going to finish up as. There are a lot of different twists and turns in this, and there are a lot of different options on how this adventure ends. And I enjoyed that quite a lot too, because that's not something you see too often in a fantasy adventure product. Like Call of Cthulhu stuff, yeah, there's usually like, okay, if the players ended up doing this, then this should happen, blah blah blah. There's usually various different options because, you know, one of the options is everybody dies. So not how I run my Call of Cthulhu. I'm not a big total party kill guy in Call of Cthulhu. In fact, I would say I'm very forgiving in my CFC adventures and campaigns. But there's, as I mentioned before, there's loads of spells. There's new monsters. There's new creatures. There's kind of like themed traps that fall into, you know, the whole fairy tale kind of setting. There's different magical items. I was just really impressed on how this is all put together. Plus, there's things that it just, as I started to talk about, there's darkness to this. The world is not, you know, usual fairy tale stuff. But then again, you know, if you think about like Grimm fairy tales and stuff, the Brothers Grimm, you don't see the actual stories. When you see, you know, animated stories based on these tales, they're pretty damn dark, and they don't always have happy endings either. It's not a Disney World of fairy tales, I guess I would say, here in Snow White. Haha. The artwork, like I said, really spectacular artwork, and the cartography is very nice. There's some really awesome looking maps, and I just can't rave enough about it. It's just, have to sit here and try to make sure that, I don't give anything away about the adventure because, a player could be watching. Now, of course, if you are a player who's taking a peek to see how this is, tell your GM, go pick this up. Go say, hey, Bob, Barbara, whoever, you should pick this up. This is supposed to be really, really good. And it is really, really good. In fact, I would give, now, there's only one kind of knock. It's not really a knock. And it's really just pricing. Now, I have not seen the hardcover, so I can't say anything about the hardcover at all. Now, the hardcover is $70. A little steep just in my opinion. This is, once again, just my opinion. I think $70 for a hardcover for 240-ish pages is a little steep. I'd prefer to, especially with it not being a core system. But this is jam-packed with stuff, don't get me wrong. That's my little ding I would give it. A little bit of a ding on it because of the pricing. It is worth it. It really is. And in PDF, it's usually $39.99. It is on sale for $29.99. Now, depending on how you feel about PDFs as far as pricing on PDFs, normally you're going to see PDFs priced at about half the price of a physical book. I mean, that's just how things work in the industry. So that's the only little ding that I have to give it is, I'm not saying it's not worth it, okay? Please don't take it that I'm not saying that Snow White from Adventure Week Games is not worth the asking price, because it is loaded with good. If it was just an adventure, I would say probably not. Don't get me wrong, the adventure's great, really cool. I did not see the original from 2014. I do understand that this has been expanded. A lot of stuff's been added into it. And of course, that made the page number go up, page count go up. But I would say, $40 normally for a PDF for an adventure, $30 on sale, being that it's an adventure and it's got all the supplemental material that you can use, and it's giving you a really cool setting that you can create your own adventures in. You don't have to just say, okay, well, our characters are just stopping by to do guard duty at this wedding, and then it's back on to our usual, routine, back to the other game world. So I do want to say that I give Snow White from Adventure Week Games get ready for it, folks, 9.5. I'll give it a 9.5. It is that good. It is that unique. It brings some stuff to the table that you wouldn't expect, especially the romance part. And I started to kind of touch upon it, and then I got off track, which is not unusual. Any good fantasy story, fairy tales, there's usually an aspect of romance in it. So I really enjoyed the fact that, and then of course, if players aren't overly comfortable with that, there's mechanics within it where it's just, dice rolls. You're just rolling dice. So it's not, nobody has to feel uncomfortable at the table because, somebody's getting kissy-faced with someone. So, but yes, by all means, I'm sure plenty of folks out there who play 3.5 D&D and Pathfinder have already added Snow White to their collection. But if you haven't, I gotta say, I cannot recommend this highly enough. It is that good. And you can save the 25% off in PDF. I would definitely welcome Adventure Week Games to send along any kind of physical books so we could take a much closer look at them. They don't have to, though, because I'll make do with doing the slides and the images. As long as it's cool with the company, that's how I look at it. Because I do realize that, sending out stuff to reviewers, that's profits out of your pocket. A PDF, It's just an electronic file. That's okay. So as long as the folks at Adventure Week Games, if they see this, I don't know if they'll see it or not. Probably already like, oh, we regret sending this guy anything. Why did we do that? You never know. Don't know. But yeah, I would definitely love to see some of their stuff like close up and get it in front of the other camera over here. And then you're not looking at my mug like huge on your phone or tablet or PC. Or somebody was talking about how they were watching this on their 65-inch screen TV and it's not really super clear. It's kind of like, well, it's 1080p. It's the best I can do. I mean, it's just a 1080p stream. I can't do anything if you're watching it on a 65-inch TV. It's kind of really geared towards somebody watching it on their computer, on their laptop or desktop, whatever. So don't walk, run, and snag Snow White from Adventure Week Games if you don't already have it in your RPG supplemental collection. All right, so kind of a long show today, kind of rambling. Yeah, it's sort of my thing, you know. Adventures are a little tricky to do reviews of, even written reviews, simply because you don't want to give stuff away. I'm a non-spoiler kind of guy, so when I do movie reviews and things like that, or TV, and I haven't done too many TV reviews for the Gaming Gang, but even movies, what's the point of going and seeing something or reading something or playing through something if you already know everything that happens or like the big major points to it? Doesn't make sense. So sorry if it's not that review wasn't detailed enough for folks. It's just like I said, I don't like to spoil stuff, but the story itself is really cool in Snow White. Anyway, all right, that is pretty much it for today. As I mentioned before, join me tomorrow. I will actually be reviewing Shutterbug from Calliope Games, and I will bring you the latest news as well and send you off, hopefully, on your way to a fun weekend. But when you're not watching the Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Oh, come on, you know the drill by now. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And I am Jeff McAleer. I will be back tomorrow. And until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday.